Good afternoon and welcome to Nonsense Talk Live. Well, before starting today's live session, let me just make one thing clear that I am not at all a Modi Bhakt or Saffron Brigade admirer. But today's incidents has prompted me to compliment our Prime Minister Narendra Modi for naming the 3 islands at Andaman Nicobar over Netaji Bose's name. On Sunday, he named Ross Island as Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose Island, Neil Island as Shahid Dweep or Island, Havlak Island as Swaraj Deep or Island. Prime Minister Modi was at Port Blair on Sunday to commemorate 75th anniversary of Netaji announcing the Azad Hind government in 1943. He named it as Arz-e-Hukumat Azad Hind. Well, the reason for all this is because of a story that has been published in a UK daily, the reputed Telegraph. Without naming the journalist who has written the story, it's there on the website. You all can go to the website, and the URL of the story is telegraph.co.uk. It may sound like I'm advertising, but I really want you people to go to the site and read the story and give your comments. If you feel like giving comments on my live, you are most welcome. As I always say, it gives the kick. But you can also go there and give your comments. Well, coming to the story. First of all, I really want to understand why we journalists, of course he belongs to my fraternity, but I really don't understand why we journalists attempt a story, such stories where someone is writing about Netaji Bose INA government without doing a little homework. I'm sorry to say, but the story itself explains that this gentleman has done no homework. I would like to show you the story, but I will read the lines hereafter. This is the story. If you can see I have highlighted with red. In red, I am reading the lines, and those of you who are Netaji admirers and even love the country will certainly understand the outburst, the anger after reading this article. It says, he writes, and I quote, Mr. Bose, who was a radical Hindu nationalist, had raised a rebel army of Indian soldiers during World War II with the help of Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan to fight the British. He further writes, and it's very objectionable, his ragtag Free Indian Army was defeated alongside the Japanese army advancing from Burma, Myanmar into northeastern India, and soon after Mr. Bose died under the mysterious circumstances 2 years before Indian independence in 1947. Well, the story, the heading of the story reads, Indian PM strips islands of British colonial names and renames them after freedom fighter. First of all, this gentleman should have done a little bit of homework, as Netaji Bose was never a Hindu nationalist, forget about being radical. In fact, if anybody does a little bit of research, then he or she will know that Netaji Bose was out and out non-communal. in his approach, because in his army, INA, he had brigades in the name of all religion. In fact, his three close confidant, Shahnawaz Khan, Gurbaksh Singh Dhillon and Prem Kumar Sehgal, were all from other religions. Netaji Bose had also constructed temple, gurdwara, church, masjid, and even those who comes from Buddhism, because he had many Gorkha and other soldiers. Netaji Bose always preached non-communal sentiments, non-communal attitude, and he was always a person who had placed humanity and love for motherland above anything. This was one part. The second part is he calls Ragtag Free Indian Army. Again, this word ragtag is highly objectionable, at the same time lacks the research or homework which was required before writing such a story. What does he mean by ragtag army? It clearly shows that this person has no idea about Azad Hind Fauj, how it was built, how it was prepared, the idea, the ideology, and above all, the initiative, the approach that went behind formation of Azad Hind Fauj. Thirdly, he establishes in his write-up as Netaji Bose died under mysterious circumstances. Well, this in itself is very objectionable, because earlier, in late 80s and early 90s, I don't remember the exact time, but when late Ajit Kumar Panja was Information Broadcasting Minister, he was quite active in not only protesting against anybody who had called Netaji Bose died in the mysterious plane crash, but also took the initiative to shun the program, shun the news even. And I can quote of two instances. One serial was being aired, made by famous director Nasir Alana Amal Alana, and it was on the life of Netaji Bose, but during the second part of the serial, Nasir Alana Amal Alana suddenly showed that Netaji Bose was taking liberty. I don't want to go into other words, but taking liberty with Captain Lakshmi Sehgal and offering her drink and enjoying. This was very objectionable. And the minister, who was also watching the serial, had immediately shunned the entire serial, saying it was not only an insult to Netaji Bose, but it was also an insult to all the freedom fighters and their sentiments. Also, it was during around this time, I remember, in the Parliament news, the newscaster had read the script as Netaji Bose, who had died in the plane crash, and immediately the minister came forward and raised his objection, and it was in the news that such scripts in Doordarshan in those days will not be allowed, and hereafter nobody will be allowed to pronounce that Netaji Bose had died in the plane crash. However, in this respect, I condemn BJP government because Rajnath Singh, after coming to power, had mentioned on 23rd January that Netaji Bose, who had died in the plane crash while expressing his tribute. Well, finally, before summing up today's live, I just want to say that such irresponsible reporting, such irresponsible journalism has really ruined the profession. And before attempting such stories, before doing such kind of stories, it's always advisable to do some kind of homework if the journalist or the anchor or the reporter doesn't know about the subject. And in today's day, it's very easy because you have Google to help you out with the facts. I once again request you all to read the story and give your comment. Before ending, I condemn this journalist who has written this story, and also the mechanism or the institution who has prompted, because there are some kind of some inputs that some particular party may be behind this story. Also, before I forget, I want to mention one discussion that I was hearing on the television, and this gentleman, a panelist, was actually condemning or attacking Netaji Bose for asking 20 years of dictatorship. Well, I think it was the farsightedness of Netaji Bose who actually realized what kind of India will be after it gets independence. And so he said, rightly said, that India is getting independence very easily, and more bloodshed is actually required to honor, to respect the contribution, the sacrifices of freedom fighters. And he came in open and said that he wants 20 years of ruthless dictatorship. And he said, then you free India from my clutches, because then you will get a really free India, an India that you can boast upon. But naturally, this was not some people in then administration, without naming, of course, some people in then administration who were actually eyeing upon the posts in the free India. Naturally, they were not very happy with this announcement, and they saw some kind of scare waves, because they knew that if Netaji Bose comes to power, then they, the leaders who were actually eyeing on these prized chairs, positions in free India, will never be able to get even a single chair. And so, I don't know if Netaji Bose was eliminated or Netaji Bose was kidnapped, because it still remains a mystery. And I also would like to register my protest here to the BJP government, saying that Gumnami Baba was Netaji Bose, because those of us who actually are admirer and lover of Netaji are actually staunch. I know it sounds strange, but yes, we don't believe that Netaji Bose and people like Netaji Bose will actually take shelter like Gumnami Baba or hide themselves from the glare, because a person who can raise Azad Hind Fauj, who can run away from his house in Kolkata, Elgin Road, in full glare of the British soldiers, at least they will never hide themselves under the blanket of Gumnami Baba or Sholmari Shadhu. Finally, this kind of story, this kind of articles needs to be condemned, and I condemn this, and I am sure those who are listening will also give their valuable suggestions, valuable comments, and condemn this writer for calling Netaji a radical Hindu activist and his Azad Hind Fauj as a ragtag army organization. Azad Hind Zindabad, Netaji Zindabad.